Time to start. This evening, we're going to be looking at contentment. In our, does anybody need a book? Okay, good. Contentment. What is contentment? Well, look in the dictionary and it says the state of being content. And not strong, don't have strong desires for things that you do not have. Contentment. All my life I've watched people and my own feelings about things, how I want this or want that, or am I happy where I'm at or what I'm doing, or just so many things. But there's one shining example that I always go back to. My best friend that I had from, before grade school, actually, clear up through high school. It was the next thing he's going to get. Well, when he got his driver's license, well, before that even, if he just had a nice horse, a horse would really, he wouldn't have to have a whole lot more. And so he did. He got a horse, and the horse wore out pretty quick. He had to feed it, take care of it. Got his driver's license, and his dad gave him an old truck, but that wasn't good enough. He had to have a good, fast car, so he got that. And boy, that was it, man. When he got that, he was on top of the world. They wouldn't really need anything much more than that. Well, after about 4 or 5 months, that car wasn't good enough. And you get the idea, it just kept going on and on. It went from the cars to motorcycles to get his pilot's license. His dad had always tinkered around with airplanes and had an airplane around a lot of the time, flying. So yeah, that would be it. So he got his pilot's license and stuff, and then that wore out. And his whole life was always that next thing is, boy, if I had that, if I just had that, that would make me happy. That's an easy trap to fall into, real easy trap to fall into. And the Bible gives us guidance in a lot of ways, and that's what we're going to look at tonight, is contentment. What is it, and where can it be found? Would somebody read 1 Timothy 6:5-10, please? Jack?
And starting with verse 5.
Yes.
In constant friction between men of depraved mind and deprived of the truth, who suppose that godliness is a means of gain. But godliness actually is a means of great gain when accompanied by contentment. For we have brought nothing into the world, so we cannot take anything out of it either. And if we have food and covering, with these we shall be content. But those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a snare and many foolish and harmful desires, which plunge men into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all sorts of evil, and some by longing for it have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many a pang.
Okay. The end of that, verse 10, sums things up pretty well, seems to me. For the love of money, and you could say for the love of material things, for something that we have a far more desire for than we should have, is is contentment mean that we just sit still and whatever we got, that's good enough, and we really don't need any more? If the roof's leaking, we'll just put a pan under it and just whatever. Do we just be content with whatever the situation is? Or do we move on? Do we push on? Is that being discontent? Yeah, Jack?
I would not think that the desire to correct something or to improve, as in, for example, improving our knowledge of God's Word, would be anything other than a good thing. So there are certain things that need our attention for improvement and building up, but there are other things that may not fit that category in terms of a requirement to do something in order to achieve contentment.
Very good. I think you're right. We're taught all through the Bible to strive spiritually, to grow. Growth is important. Well, without a desire to move forward, a will to move forward, and a push, that isn't going to happen. And that won't satisfy God, and it won't do what we need. We can't sit back. Being content doesn't mean we just are satisfied with status quo. But we're able to live in any station of life. And we're able to make the best out of that station that we're at. Paul gives us that example, how he looked at life, and his Christian life especially. Now I want to jump back. I'd like for somebody to read Ecclesiastes, the 5th chapter, 10 through 16. You have a volunteer?
He who loves money will not be satisfied with money, nor he who loves wealth with his income. This also is vanity. When goods increase, they increase to eat them. And what advantage has their owner but to see them with his eyes? Sweet is the slumber of a laborer, whether he eats little or much, but the full stomach of the rich will not let him sleep. There is a grievous evil that I have seen under the sun. Riches were kept by their owner to his hurt, and those riches were lost in a bad venture. And he is father of a son, but he has nothing in his hand. And he came from his mother's womb, he shall go again, naked as he came, and shall take nothing for his toil that he may carry away in his hand.
Okay. We can't take anything with us. We didn't bring anything in. We can't take anything with us. The idea that riches, I would say, if you look at the world, the idea that riches will bring contentment or joy or peace is probably one of the biggest fallacies there is. John Paul Getty, when he was writing his memoirs, an extremely wealthy man, when he come to the close of his life, it almost sounded like Solomon writing in Ecclesiastes. He said that the happiest time in his life when he was a young man as a beachcomber and didn't own anything. The miseries that his wealth brought with it were not worth it in the end, was his conclusion of it. Just as Solomon concluded that, fear God, keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. There's not, wealth doesn't bring the happiness. But you talk to people, and that's where most of them look, is to wealth and to material things. In the first question there, it says, make a list of wealthy, righteous characters in the Bible, and make a list of poor, righteous characters in the Bible. And then look at the similarities between the two groups. Some of them that I wrote down for wealthy were Abraham, Joseph, Job, Jacob, David. Then you look on the other side and you've got the poor, Elijah, Naomi, and one that really stands out is the widow of Zarephath. Paul, he had just enough to get by. He worked for a living a lot of the time. And you can all go on and name them. I'm sure that some of you have some other ones. Yes, Ken.
You need to have a place to lay his head.
That's
the
right.
foxes have home, birds have nests, the Son of Man had not where to lay his head.
Yep.
So in that sense, he was poor.
He was poor. But what was he rich in?
Praise God.
Yeah. That's just what we're looking at here. The ones that we have, the wealthy, like Abraham, it talks about his flocks and his herds. And he was a wealthy man. He was a very wealthy man. And Joseph started out without a whole lot. He was in prison. He was abused and mistreated. But he ended up second, an extremely wealthy man in Egypt. Job, we don't know where he started out, but we know he was wealthy. And he was wealthy because of God allowed him to become wealthy, especially the second time around. But wealth wasn't their focus in life, any of them. Abraham was chasing, I guess you could say, was chasing a dream. He believed in it. He knew what God would do for him. He knew what God could do. And he was following that. The wealth came along, but that wasn't his focus in life. Joseph, his focus in life never changed from when he was an abused prisoner until he was the second in command of Egypt. His focus was on God and doing what God wanted. Job focused on God and had everything taken away from him, but never lost that focus. He stayed focused, and in the end, God gave him more than what he had in the beginning. That's kind of the way it is with us. If our focus is on God and on serving God, and that's where our pleasure, our joy comes from, is a servant of serving God, which entitles how many things? What is serving God entitled? Just name some things.
A peace that passes understanding.
Say it again.
A peace that passes understanding.
Okay, that's one thing you get from serving God. What does serving God include?
Denying yourself.
Denying yourself, good. Denying yourself. What does it mean to deny yourself?
Put somebody ahead of you.
Yeah, right. When you put the person, and that is showing what? Brotherly love. That's part of serving God. Serving God is trying to spread God's kingdom out, trying to teach our neighbors, trying to be the example we need to be when our focus is on that, what does that do to our focus on material things and wealth? You know, it kind of fades into the background. When you do something for someone, and especially a Christian brother, you help them or do something, and you see that smile, you see the happiness or the relief to have something done or taken care of, whatever, or even just a friendly hello, and how much that means to you in the end. It's feeling, it's amazing. It is. That's serving God, not serving self. When we go the other route, and we buy this or we buy that, and boy, that's great. Wow, that's wonderful. Or we build this bigger, or we do this. And that is our focus. That focus has no future. It dies out. It goes away. It doesn't stay new and fresh as serving God does. So if we focus our lives, contentment is one of the side things that we have. Being satisfied with what we have. Elijah, now it talks about him. He had really nothing, basically. God took care of him. We know Elisha had a house and a servant and stuff, but it never talks about Elijah having that type of things. And just eating whatever he found to eat, but God took care of him, and his focus was always on God. I don't see him being discontent with that. He done some amazing things through God. Naomi, she kept her faith in a foreign country. She came back. She never lost her faith. She done what was necessary to stay alive, to move forward, always focusing on God. The widow of Zarephath, here's a woman that she's out getting ready to fix her last meal for her and her son. And when the man of God says, you know, well, give me a little cake first and a little water, and all that cruse will never go dry with oil, and the flour will never be gone until the famine's over. And she had the faith to do it. And she ate, her and her son and Elijah, they ate until the famine was over. The material things are very insignificant compared to spiritual things and to the relationships that we have with our family and with our brethren. There are so many things to be gained. Material blessings just don't stay, and don't produce the satisfaction that we often think they would. Okay, I'm talking too much. Anybody, on this list of wealthy or poor that you wrote down that different than what I had, or any different ideas? Anything? I can't be doing that good of a job. Yeah.
I just thought about, I put Job on both lists, and that was what the test was, to see what kind of man he really was. And God had confidence to let the devil tempt him because he knew what kind of man he was, but he went through that test, and whether he was rich or whether he was poor, he was the same man. He was a godly, righteous man, and that's what we need to be. Whichever side we're on or somewhere in the middle, you know, we need to be what God wants us to be.
Yes. Anyone else?
I've got an interesting question. Like, how many verses, like, of the rich and poor, how many of the rich followers of Christ ended up falling away from him in the end versus the ones that were poor? Because in, like, Solomon or some of the other guys, like, towards the end of their life, they were swept away by passions of the
Okay.
flesh, where it didn't end well for them.
Yeah, you're talking like not followers particularly of Christ, but of God, God's followers, yes. Yeah, well, I don't know, but it does go to the fact that Christ says it is harder for a rich man to go through an eye of a needle than for a camel to go through an eye of a needle than a rich man to go to heaven, because the wealth is a hindrance to his spiritual life. And yes, what you're talking about, Solomon, yeah, he turned away, it says, following other gods and stuff. And a lot of that due to the wealth and affluence, yes. But, yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. But it definitely is harder with wealth, which in other words, you say, well, then I really don't want wealth. Well, you don't, yeah. It's not the ideal situation. This is not from the Bible, but there was an old gentleman that financed me to start in business, an old farmer. And he had a saying, and he was an extremely good money manager and money maker, but you'd never known it to see him. But he helped a lot of people other than just me. And he had a saying that for every 100 people that can withstand poverty, only 9 can withstand wealth. It'll destroy them. And what he used for an example was different people that he had helped over the years that were needing help. And he helped them, and it ended up destroying them instead of helping them because of the wrong mindset. I don't know whether any of that helps you or not, but anybody else, anything? Okay, if not, in Acts 20 and 35, we've got Paul says, I have showed you all things, how that so laboring ye ought to support the weak, and to remember the words of the Lord, how he said, it is more blessed to give than receive. And this goes right along with what we're talking about, our attitude towards our finances and our brethren. Do we have the right attitude? Do we have a giving heart? Is that giving more blessed than the receiving? Do we enjoy it or do we hold back? And it doesn't just go to giving to our individual, to our brethren, but also to God. You know, how is our heart? Giving. Do we have a giving heart? In Ephesians 4 and 28, you know, the purpose of work, to take care of ourselves and to help the less fortunate. Make our lives worthwhile. In Corinthians 8th chapter 13 through 15 is on giving too, having a giving heart. Somebody want to read that, please? Corinthians, 1 Corinthians, I think it is. Yeah. 2 Corinthians 8:13 through 15.
but by way of equality. At this present time, your abundance being a supply for their need, so that their abundance also may become a supply for your need, that there may be equality. As it is written, he who gathered much did not have too much, and he who gathered little had no lack.
The idea that of giving, of caring, of sharing, God makes it work out in the end. He tells us that take no thought for tomorrow in Matthew, for God will take care of us. God will take care of us, and it's true. If we don't have the trust to believe that God will take care of us, that makes it hard to give, because if we're depending on that money, that's the only thing we got to take care of us, we're not going to be very giving. But when we work and we give and we care, it puts life together as God would have us to be. I like this next question. Says, part of it there, do you consider yourself wealthy? Do you consider yourself wealthy? I got one head going, yes. Pardon?
Not in riches as wealthy in money, but as in serving for the Lord.
There you go. Serving God is wealth. But what, yeah, Artie?
In this country, we really don't know what real poor is. You know, I mean, some of the poorest in America are technically, in many countries, would be considered rich. You know, and those of us who have a lot more, well, than poor are considered, as far as if you want to average us out with the whole world, we are very rich in this country, and we are blessed beyond what many, probably 85–90% of the world is. But we don't always realize it because we don't have the right attitude a lot of times.
Amen.
I'd like to add what he's saying onto that. They may be poor, but spiritually they are very rich because they know where they're at in their life.
Yep. Yeah, we are affluent in this country, and today, it's kind of odd that I run across it. I was thinking about my lesson here. Do you consider yourself? And I was looking around at what I have, and yeah, I'm wealthy, especially compared to a lot of people. And a news thing ran across the computer screen there, and I clicked on it, and it was on the starvation that's taking place in Afghanistan at this time. And it really hit me. They had this man and his wife and his 3 children, and they were sitting in this hovel, and the man has a big bandage on his side, a scar, and he had sold his kidney on the black market to keep his family alive. We have no idea when we're at a state of desperation where we would sell body parts to keep our family alive. That really, yeah, we're wealthy. We're really wealthy. But as we sit here in this building, we're far richer than a lot of the people, our neighbors and friends that have a lot more money, because we understand what we have. We appreciate it through God's Word, through knowing what is right, what is wrong, what will actually bring us contentment. Anything else? Anybody? Okay, not. Well, one more thing I had on that. We always how to say this, wealth, actually having wealth doesn't bring you peace of mind that you have wealth. You always got to get more. we had a neighbor, he's gone now, but every time you started talking, he was a pretty well-to-do farmer, and every time you start talking to him, he would start complaining about the markets. He's going to go broke. The fertilizer's too expensive. Equipment's too expensive. He just don't know how he's going to make it. It's just on and on. And his wife would say, "Will you quit poor mouthing?" You know, wealth in itself, yeah. He considered himself poor just because he might lose some money. Yeah, that's the kind of satisfaction you get from wealth. And number 4, our society is obsessed with all new, modern, valuable, innovative, and so forth. But that's what we've been talking about, the focus, our spiritual focus. Yeah, you know, we like to upgrade a vehicle, move forward, something a little nicer, something a little different. And there's nothing wrong with that. Of course, everybody keeping up on their cell phones and stuff, and I don't. It don't interest me, and just means that I have to talk to somebody that much more. That don't go with me for some reason. Yeah, the new, the modern, the innovations attract people and keep you spending your money, but they all just fade away. Okay, some of the question number 5. Practical ways. What are some practical ways you can think of to reduce your dependence on stuff?
Get rid of a lot of it.
Pardon?
Get rid of a lot of it.
Okay.
We know when we moved here, we realized how much stuff we had accumulated back in New Hampshire, and how easy it was to just say, "Hey, we hadn't used this thing in a year, and read that book in 10. You know, why are we hauling it to
Right.
Indiana?"
Right.
You know, and so the stuff was there, but it was.
But yeah, get rid of it. Artie?
Try to find someone less fortunate and give from your excess to bless them. Some that need it.
Yeah.
Fellowship and serving, just going out and doing things with idle hands are not a good thing.
Say that again?
Idle hands are not a good thing. You go out and serve and spend your time, you're not focusing on those things.
Okay. Yep. Jack?
There's value in setting aside funds so that when someone else might need help, you've already set it aside so that you can help. And if you take care of the things that you do have so that they last longer, you get better use of that and aren't replacing things unnecessarily because of mistreatment or abuse.
Okay. Taking care of what you do have. Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
I think the question sounds like that I'm dependent on it. In other words, I'd have to have that new TV or I can't
Yeah.
survive, you know, and so the concept I would think would be to go ahead and focus my mind on something else other than
that comes to your focus, right? Where is your point of focus? Yeah, your point of focus. That's the point of focus. If our point of focus only goes to the next new thing or the next paycheck or whatever, our point of focus is way short-sighted. We should be looking down the road to eternity. We're all going to step off the edge of time into eternity. And that's what our focus needs to be on. And it's going to be amazing and wonderful. Not that wonderful new car or that wonderful this. Not that they're wrong, but it's our focus. Anybody else? Okay. And Proverbs, would somebody please read Proverbs 30, 7 through 9? Yes, Amy.
Two things I ask of you, Lord. Do not refuse me before I die. Keep falsehood and lies far from me. Give me neither poverty nor riches, but give me only my daily bread. Otherwise, I may have too much and disown you, and say, who is the Lord? Or I may become poor and steal, and so dishonor the name of my God.
Yes. Just having a prayer asking God, just give me enough to live, to be comfortable, basically. And not wealth, but not poverty either. Where I'll force myself into positions that I shouldn't be. I love that passage. That attitude, as it says in our lesson, that attitude in that prayer of how small a value is placed on the physical things there versus the spiritual things. Anybody? Any other comments? If not, okay. Oh, I thought I missed one. I skipped over. Yes, one I wanted to make sure. Number 6. So what are some of the practical ways to help children become good at recognize the difference between needs and wants? Carrie.
Ask them to help pay for something they want. That decides it pretty quickly.
Okay, that definitely helps. If you give it to them, it don't have much value, does it? But if they have to work for it, you start realizing what the value is. Something else we do.
Say no. When they ask for something that they don't need, but they just want, there are times when you just say no.
Yep, say no. Say no. Yes.
Just be the example, practice what you preach.
Pardon?
Be the example, practice what you preach.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
He said, be the example and practice what you preach.
Yes, example. Yes, be the example. Children, watch everything you do, especially your parents and grandparents. Watch your speech. Watch your physical appearance. Everything you do. What emphasis do you put on money? Are you all harping on, wow, I like this or I want that? Or are you satisfied with the things that you can generate and do, the values that you have in your family, the values you have in good friends and brethren? What type of an attitude do we project to our children and live? We've got to children, they pick up on everything, even though you don't think they do. It's amazing what they pick up on. And if we are hypocritical in what we say and what we do, we're not helping them, we're destroying them.
And destroying what they think of you. And when you lose respect for someone, especially the people that are supposed to lead you, your word means nothing.
Good point. Good point. Yeah, if they don't respect you.
You
Yeah.
don't watch somebody spin in circles so many times and then have them call you out on saying things where you're like, okay, you write this guy or girl off completely.
Yep. Yeah. You aren't going to teach your children much if they don't have any respect for you. And boy, you see a lot of that. And the parents are to blame. Anything else? Any other comments on contentment? Yeah, okay.
Always helps to remember, goes along with everything that's been said, you know, to whom much is given, much is expected. So when you find yourself in whatever circumstance with abundance, how are you going to honor God with that? Because that's what is expected.
Yep. Anything else? We're a little past time, but thank you very much for your participation. I hope you learned something or feel good about it.